I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks so much for joining us this hour. You know, during a recent hearing for 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, the alleged shooter at a protest march in Kenosha, Wisconsin, our CourtTV team noticed a familiar face representing the sole survivor from that shooting. That face was Kimberley Motley's, and trust us when we say she has a very interesting personal and professional story to tell. CourtTV special contributor Ashley Banfield spoke to Kimberley this evening and joins us tonight.
Hey, Vinny, you know, our crack reporter, Bruce Conover, noticed Kimberley on the Zoom and said, I know that face. And it turned out it was exactly who he thought she was. She's right now representing Gage Grosskreutz, who is the survivor of the shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, allegedly perpetrated by Kyle Rittenhouse. So she didn't say a lot on the Zoom, but that was a pretty intense hearing that CourtTV covered. And, you know, Bruce brought it to my attention and said, you know that she was in Afghanistan too, because I spent some time there, right around the same time, a couple of years apart that when I was in Afghanistan. It turns out she was there too, but she was doing something very, very different than I was. I was reporting on the war in Afghanistan post 9/11, and she was doing something way more important. She was defending some of those women who had had terrible crimes perpetrated against them, crimes you just couldn't imagine here in the United States would happen, but happened there all the time. Crimes that a lot of women don't even know laws exist on the books there to protect them, and that they have a right to an attorney. So along comes this beautiful woman who was Mrs. Wisconsin at one point and sachets into Afghanistan and starts really putting the pedal to the metal. I had a great conversation with her, Vinny, not only about that amazing work that she did and some of the unbearable stories of the victims that she really rescued, but also the work she's doing right now in the Rittenhouse case. Have a look. So, Kim, tell me, how did you end up involved in the Kyle Rittenhouse case?
Well, I mean, it's simply Gage reached out to me and asked me to represent him. I am a Wisconsin native. I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I was doing several cases in the area. And then what happened with regards to the Kenosha protests happened. And, you know, I was reached out to and asked if I would represent him, and I was happy to do that.
How is he doing? Is he okay?
He's doing okay. I mean, it's a lot to handle to be a young man that's sort of sheltering in like everyone else as a result of COVID, to sort of unintentionally be thrown into this international spotlight because someone decided to, you know, just indiscriminately shoot at people.
So, I mean, yeah, all of a sudden, his life will be forever changed twice, all within a matter of months.
That's correct. Yeah. It's a lot to take on his shoulders, but, you know, he's doing as well as someone can under those circumstances.
What was interesting, our team, you know, was looking during one of the hearings in the background and spotted you, and you have this additional sort of remarkable story that I also want to tap into, and that is that you are a global traveler. You have spent time trotting around the world looking after people who otherwise may never have been looked after legally. I want to talk to you a little bit about your time in Afghanistan, because it's something that's near and dear to my heart too, having spent better part of half a year there. But talk to me about the work that you've been doing to rescue people legally.
I feel like my job as a lawyer is to represent my clients to as well as I can, especially the most vulnerable and marginalized clients. So a lot of those clients involve women and children in Afghanistan who I've represented and have been working with for going on over 12 years now. My focal point has been litigating within local courts in different countries. And I very much am for, you know, protecting human rights, protecting civil rights. And so I have wonderful clients who have trusted me to represent them, for instance, on saving them from child marriages, to trying to represent women who are charged with adultery illegally within the Afghan court system. So it's been a lot, and I'm very grateful to my clients and to my practice.
You know, I think for a lot of our viewers and, you know, Americans in general, we hear things like, you know, helping people navigate the legal system. And then you think about a country like Afghanistan and you wonder, what legal system? How I mean, what's it really like? I don't want to compare to what it was when I was there, because there just wasn't a legal system. But what is it like? I mean, do you feel as though people do get a fair shake, or do you bang your head against the wall constantly with the system over there?
To be honest, I'm always banging my head against the wall in many legal systems, and certainly in Afghanistan. It's a very difficult legal system to navigate, which is why, frankly, why there hasn't been any foreigners really that have, practice in Afghanistan. In 2008, I was the first foreign attorney to practice in the Afghan courts, and I still believe I'm the only one, 12 years later. It's a system that, takes into consideration, whereas in the US, there's a separation of church and state, but in Afghanistan, church is state. So understanding not just the Afghan laws, the international conventions, and Islamic laws is really key to being successful within the Afghan legal system. It's a system to where I've been fortunate enough to have had, great verdicts on behalf of my clients, but it's hard. It's really hard.
There's a lot more to it than just corruption. Sometimes it's just bad setups, but you're a woman, and I'm sure you turn a lot of heads, and at times I'm sure that you have a lot of brick walls in front of you because of that.
As a foreign lawyer woman, that I'm allowed to represent men and women. Whereas if I were a foreign man, there is no way that I would be allowed to represent an Afghan woman. So I feel like in some ways, as a foreign American woman, I'm able to see both sides. I'm able to represent the men as well as the women. Afghanistan is a system where often unwritten illegal procedure trumps written laws. So I've seen many cases, many more cases, where people have been brought before the court without an attorney being present, even though legally they're allowed to have an attorney and they're constitutionally supposed to have an attorney. So it can be frustrating at times, but I feel that I try to use sort of my background and foundation of practice law in America as a really good foundation to understand, what I think is the best way for me to argue a case, if that makes sense.
Well, things have come a long way, because there were times when I wasn't even allowed to speak, to any of the officials. I had to have my producer or my cameraman do the negotiation for me, even though I was the one with the purse strings. That was a bit eye-opening. I'm glad you're allowed to represent men. Man, that never would have happened in 2001, which is shocking too, because Afghanistan in the 60s had girls in miniskirts going to university. So it's just really completely turned on its head. I wanted you to tell me though about the story that I know that you were involved in a woman's name. I think her name was Sahar, where she was sold, I think, by her brother to a family that wanted her to prostitute for them. And tell me the story of her briefly, if you would. It just sounded so unbelievable to me.
Well, Sahar was a young girl. I believe she was 10 years old when she was sold by her brother to marry a man who was in his 40s. Her pedophile husband treated her very badly, abused her routinely as part of sport. And there's at one point where Sahar was basically so badly abused that her uncle went to go check up on her. And they had done things like chained her in the basement. They refused to give her food. And a lot of it was because they wanted her to prostitute herself. And Sahar refused. This young girl at the age of 10 was refusing to become a prostitute for her husband. And I think that's incredibly brave and scary for her to do. And as a result of that, Sahar was severely punished. She was chained, she was starved. At one point, she managed to escape from her husband's house and ran to a neighbor's house. However, when she went there, her neighbor dragged her back to her husband's house, and she was tortured even worse. And so thankfully, Sahar's uncle found out, came up to the house several times asking what was going on with Sahar, and realized how badly abused the amount of abuse that they were committing against her. And he brought the police, and she was so weak that she couldn't even walk. She couldn't even move. And so he put her on a wheelbarrow and then wheelbarrowed her to the hospital. And so when I represented Sahar, her mother-in-law and her father-in-law had been arrested, but her husband and her sister-in-law had not been arrested. So once she went to the hospital, and when I met Sahar, I represented her in court. Now in Afghan law, according to Afghan law, a victim has the right to be represented by an attorney. This is a relatively new law, according to the Elimination of Violence Against Women Act, Long story short, I represented Sahar in court. And as a result of that, we were able to get her mother-in-law, her father-in-law, her sister-in-law, her husband, and her brother to all be charged and convicted of criminal offenses, as they should have. In
Wow.
addition, so it was good.
That's just unbelievable. I mean, it's amazing, first of all, that she's alive, but it's just unbelievable that you were able to get all of them charged and convicted. I mean, that's climbing Everest.
It was a really tough case, and it's an important case because it was important because I think there's this misconception that according to Islamic law, child marriage is legal, but it's not. Islamic law says that child marriage and forced marriage all the time is illegal. And we brought those tenets to court. We talked about what the Holy Quran says, which is really important because you don't get that a lot of times with a lot of women's rights cases. A lot of times attorneys just let whatever happen in court. And in addition to that, her brother was charged for illegally selling her in the first place. And that also was a very important message that if you are a person that sells, anyone for forced marriage, that you can have criminal consequences as well.
Did they all go to prison?
They did all go to prison, yes.
For how long?
Well, the sentences were all 5 years. They weren't as long as we would have liked for them to be, unfortunately, but that's, how the system works there.
Listen, it's 5 years more than I'm sure a lot of people have seen in the injustice they've suffered from. Hey, it's really great that you're just, doing this kind of work and that you continue to. And once COVID is over, I'm sure you'll be doing more of it. Kimberly, thanks so much for talking to us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
And Vinny, Kimberly, pre-COVID was making these trips every couple of months back and forth to Afghanistan, oftentimes staying with friends or journalists. She's represented people from the New York Times, from CNN, journalists who have struggled against, administrations overseas. And this has not been easy work. Not just the fact that she's a woman who, oftentimes is invisible in these parts of the world. Someone threw a grenade at the house where she was staying. I think it was back in 2006, somewhere around that time. And so, but she keeps going back. Here we are, 14 years later, she's still doing it, grenade or not. So she is truly a remarkable woman.
Absolutely. Fascinating story. Ashley Banfield, thank you so much.
You bet.